Destiny. A divisive franchise to say the least. It's had plenty of hiccups and fewer moments of victory. There's been plenty of feedback given, most of which call for reversions to previous systems, but I want to offer alternative solutions to some of the problems. Solutions that either find a nice middle ground or push us forward without any of the issues the previous systems had. I'm looking at you, RNGesus. I believe Destiny as a franchise has a lot of untapped potential, so let's see what we could do to forge a better Destiny.
So I ask you, who will stand with me?
Yeah! Oh, really, guys?
That was inspiring.
Also, there will be a ton of loot! Yeah, right? That's what I thought.
Let's start with rewards. There's a lot of back and forth within the community talking about whether or not we should keep static rolls while increasing the influence of their perks, or go back to random rolls. Both systems obviously have their pros and cons, but I think we can certainly make this better. Instead, I believe the grind should be less about earning a specific gun, though that should certainly still be a part of it. But the idea here is that getting a weapon isn't the end-all be-all for it. You'll get it, and depending on its frame, foundry, archetype, whatever, it'll behave in a specific way and have a small selection of perks that mostly make minor stat changes. So you get a weapon, it isn't anything special right off the bat, but you enjoy the feel of it. This is where the second part of the grind comes into play, however. The next step is to go out and grind for specific mod components. These components can then be taken in and forged into a completed mod that adds additional, more impactful perks to your weapon. But you're not turning in these components and getting some random mod. No. Instead, you want a mod that adds Outlaw. We're going to give you, the player, a direct path to earning that Outlaw mod. Say it takes 5 strikes and then 5 public events in the EDZ, for example, to earn the specific components needed for an Outlaw mod. I know what you're thinking. Are we only allowed one impactful perk? No, you can have multiple perks. How will we keep this from becoming imbalanced? I'm glad you asked, actually. Let's say each mod has a different rarity. In fact, different rarities can have the same type of mod, albeit with an increased effect the more rare it is. Depending on the mod's rarity, we give it a certain number of points. And on our weapons, we can only have up to a certain total of mod points active on it. Just to clarify, let's say all weapons can have up to 5 points of mods allotted onto them. Uncommon mods cost 1 point, rare mods cost 2, legendary 3, and exotic mods 4. An outlaw mod could have both a rare and legendary variant, with the legendary version having a larger impact. But you couldn't stack the same mods onto each other for a greater effect, even if they're a different rarity. This type of reward system, I believe, would breathe new life into the game. It would make activities that are currently meaningless meaningful, as you could only get specific mod components from those specific activities. It would keep certain weapons and mod combinations from getting out of hand, and would allow players to actually invest in their weapons. This same system could also apply to armor, but I felt it was easier to explain it with weapons as the example. I should also add, this system would not affect endgame loot. Raid, trials, and exotic weapons would still have static rolls, though maybe you could apply a single lower tier mod onto them as well. That's maybe a discussion for a different day.
As long as we have our imagination.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. That's really something. Can I have your TV?
With imagination, I can be anything I want. A pirate. Arr. A football player. Hup.
A starfish.
Patrick, you're already a starfish.
See Squidward, it works.
With that out of the way, let's talk about activities now. Activities in Destiny, at least most of the time, are boring. You grind the same strikes, grind in Crucible, grind public events, grind and grind against a bunch of weak and dumb enemies, and then a boss that's just a normal enemy on steroids. I don't know how to fix everything here, but I do want to specifically talk about one of Destiny's more defining features outside of the raids: public events. It was the first thing to really wow me when I first saw the game. Unfortunately, outside of the Fallen Walker, Tier 3 Court of Oryx, and maybe the Archon's Forge, they never really felt like they met their full potential. They're a lot better now in Destiny 2 thanks to their greater variety and scope, as well as the inclusion of optional heroic objectives, but they still fall victim to one of Destiny's biggest flaws, which is taking an already existing enemy type, making said enemy bigger, giving it a larger health pool, and calling it a day. I understand that this may save time and resources, but we've been fighting these same enemies for nearly 4 years. It'd be one thing if there were unique mechanics to fighting these bosses, much like the Ogre from Tier 3 Court of Oryx, or even if they had unique behaviors, but they don't have either, which makes this issue even worse. So I propose a solution, and it may take more time and effort on Bungie's front, but I believe the payoff will be worth it. One of the newest activities in Destiny 2 are the weekly flashpoints. A specific planet is highlighted each week and has additional enemies that spawn in, usually during public events. But what if we took this one step further? What if, when a location becomes a flashpoint, new public events open up that are unique to that location? Perhaps some even only show up when players perform certain tasks that aren't immediately clear, causing the world to feel even more alive. No longer are we simply reacting to it, it's also reacting to us. And the bosses of these public events would be grand in their scope and scale, with truly unique designs, behaviors, and mechanics attributed to them, almost like that of a mini raid boss. What if we could fight an Ahamkara on Io, or a giant squid-like creature on Titan, but only when those locations were flashpoints? This ties back in with my revised reward system. You want to perk the likes of Destiny 1 Firefly, you have to successfully complete the Ahamkara public event X number of times to earn the mod components for it, but you only have access to that event when Io is the flashpoint. There's this wild exotic weapon that covers your enemies in ink when you land precision hits on them, effectively blinding them. You gotta kill that squid on Titan when it's the flashpoint. On top of all of this, you could also add strike-esque bosses in the non-public zones. Again, giving them unique mechanics or behaviors and tying unique rewards to them. Go so far as to make it a challenge for even a fire team of 3 players. We like an actual challenge. Destiny 2's weapon system is underwhelming. There's nothing else to really say about it. Between the current system and the one we had in the original game, I take Destiny 1's weapon system, but that's an easy thing to say. And reverting to the previous system wouldn't necessarily fix all of our problems. Let's be honest, the original heavy slot was never all that interesting. Outside very few edge cases like Gallarhorn, Truth, Thunderlord, the exotic sword, Sleeper Simulant, and a very small selection of legendaries, the heavy slot just felt kind of there. Snipers were clearly the way to go in terms of DPS. While that's not necessarily the fault of the heavy slot, I do think we can change it to increase its overall value. Exotics in D1 were both really powerful and also not very powerful, depending on the weapon and the time of the meta. But the de facto choices were typically exotic snipers, more specifically Icebreaker and Black Spindle. There were a few other outliers in the primary and heavy slots, but when it came to endgame activities, those were among the best options for DPS. And as an unfortunate side effect, it rendered the heavy slot kinda useless in that regard. I like the idea of having 2 primaries, but the current power ammo economy in PvE especially hurts shotguns and snipers. I should always have 1 primary ready to go, and I should almost always have a sniper or shotgun for those more extreme scenarios. So my proposed solution is this. We return to the way Destiny 1 handled its first 2 weapon slots. Primary weapons would include scouts, pulses, autos, hand cannons, SMGs, and sidearms. Special weapons would have snipers, shotguns, normal fusion rifles, and grenade launchers. The third slot, however, would become the exotic slot. It would allow you to equip exotic weapon types that belong both to the primary and special slots, but also weapon types that would be exclusive to that slot alone, such as rockets, heavy machine guns, linear fusion rifles, swords, so on and so forth. The beauty of this system is that it can be controlled, and because of that, it means exotics can be more powerful than they currently are. It would also be the most flexible system Destiny has ever offered as well. Do you roll with 2 hand cannons, 1 primary and 1 exotic, and a sniper? Or do you go for a more balanced approach with a pulse rifle in your primary, shotgun in your special, and an exotic sniper? This gives power back to both Bungie and us, the player. They can create wildly powerful exotic weapons again, and we, the player, can live out those power fantasies. The last thing to really make this system balanced is the addition of an extra stat specific to weapons in the exotic slot. This stat would only help exotics in PvE, and it's called ammo rarity. Some exotics are going to be less impactful than others. This is just the nature of the game and the weapon types they belong to. An exotic rocket launcher will surely have a greater damage potential than an exotic scout. Ammo rarity helps in this matter, allowing less powerful exotics to have a greater chance at having ammo drop for them, and vice versa. The goal of this video isn't to fix everything in Destiny. I'm not here to tell Bungie what to do or make you, the viewer, agree with me. If you do, that's great. If not, tell me why. I'm simply offering ideas and potential solutions. If you think you have a better idea or something to add on to what I've covered, then leave me a message down in the comments. The purpose of this video is to promote discussion and to take a look outside of the box. Everyone right now wants to quickly jump back to the way Destiny 1 works, but I personally don't think that's the best approach either. I think we have a number of directions we could take that not only eliminates the issues we had with Destiny 2, but the issues we had with the first game as well. I know I didn't cover every single problem that Destiny 2 is facing, but I do believe that the issues I did cover are what's currently hurting the game the most. Let me know if you liked the video, if you hated this video, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, be it on Destiny or other games. This has been Comet Tail on Forging a Better Destiny. Until next time.